Force One podcast hosting Reading the Constitution. We are starting again at Article 1, picking up where we left off, Section 7. Yesterday we covered Article 1, Section 1 through Section 6, and we learned who is allowed to be representative, a senator, and we understood through these offices what it is to sit on an impeachment, that the first six sections actually have clausations for dealing with rogue presidents, and that they also have information on what to do when the different senators and stuff are also rogue. You impeach them all. So we're going to pick up at Section 7, Article 1, Section 7 in the Constitution. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives, but the Senate may propose or concur with amendments as on other bills. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it becomes a law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve it, he shall sign it. But if not, he shall return it with his objections to that house in which it shall have originated, who shall enter the objections at large on their journal and proceed to reconsider it. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of that house shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent, together with the objections, to the other house, by which it shall likewise be reconsidered, and if approved by 2/3 of that house, it shall become a law. But in all such cases, the votes of both houses shall be determined by yeas and nays, and the names of the persons voting for and against the bill shall be entered on the journal of each house respectively. If any bill shall not be returned by the President within 10 days, Sundays excepted, after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law in the like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Congress, by their adjournment, prevent its return, in which case it shall not be a law. So what we've got right here is a specific process for bills raising revenue that is created to match how other bills operate. Specifically, though, these bills that is for raising revenue, and it's a specific thing about raising revenue that is not commented on about the other bills. So this whole process that we understand, that the House and the Representatives send their rules to that they send their bill to the president and that they get to reconsider it. That's all here in this section, and it lays it out. Section 7, all bills. Hi, welcome. Covering the Constitution today. So here we go. We're going to continue. Every order, resolution, or vote to which the concurrence of the State and House of Representatives may be necessary, except on a question of adjournment, shall be presented to the President of the United States, and before the same shall take effect, shall be approved by him, or being disapproved by him, shall be repassed by 2/3 of the Senate and House of Representatives, according to the rules and limitations prescribed in the case of a bill. I am. Thank you for asking. Are you? And so what we have here is that you raise money for the United States in the same way that you do any other laws. That's what this Section 7 covered. So now Section 8 talks about how to get tax money. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States, but all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. Now, I'm going to pause right here because, as everyone who's ever traveled throughout the United States understands, all duties, imposts, and excises are not uniform throughout the United States. The federal ones might be, but the states themselves set them at different rates, which makes this a problem, legalistically speaking. Every time you're paying taxes, duties, and imposts that are different from one area to the next. Like when I was stationed at Naval Station Norfolk in Virginia, we never bought cigarettes in Virginia. We went to North Carolina and we saved like hundreds of dollars a year because we went across the border. So, well over 20 years of my life, I know for a fact that that law is not, it's not even, that's totally being ignored. But we'll keep going. There's lots of stuff in here that's being ignored. And it's only through understanding what it says, what it asks, and how it's being ignored that we'll be able to figure out what we have to do to fix the issues at hand. Obviously, you have to stand up to bullies. Bullies try to tell you what things say. You have to tell them, you know what it says. Here we are, we're reading it. So we're going to go on. To borrow money on the credit of the United States to regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the several states and with the Indian tribes, to establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States, to coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Now I'm going to pause right there. That whole section right there is imperative right now. We are on the brink of them trying to do totally away with cash money and force us all into digital currency. And as a crypto builder myself, like I love the idea of actually anonymous crypto money. But the only thing we have right now that's an actual anonymous crypto ledger is like XMR. Uh, Bitcoin and all of these other ledgers are pseudo anonymous. And if you don't understand the difference between being able to buy stuff with your money and having financial privacy, and the idea that a ledger that is online and being kept forever will have all records of your expenses as something you don't want a government to have access to. Well, I mean, that's like the biggest violation of your privacy ever, is for them to know everything you spend your money on. Okay, so we're going to continue. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States, to establish post offices and post roads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. Okay, so we're going to pause right there too. We have a huge problem in this United States over writer and inventor IP rights. In fact, significant amounts of stuff we use on the computer today, including like point and click, was probably the IP rights of a designer or developer and not the company that's been exploiting it and making money off of it. And the amount of money that that developer or IP holder would have to have in order to fight the corporations is astronomical. But it is established in the Constitution that the Congress is supposed to promote progress of science and useful arts through the rights that belong to the writings and the discovery, the authors of them. So, I mean, that's every time somebody tries to come after the Copyright Office and obliterate the rights of authors, they're literally coming up against this particular Section 8, Article 1 of the Constitution. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Okay, so how to put this? We are not supposed to have an army that is standing for more than 2 years at a time. We are, however, the very next part says, to provide and maintain a navy, allowed an unlimited use of naval powers. Like you can have a standing navy, but you can't have a standing army. And that was actually to defend the seas around America. All right. To make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. To provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Now, this is where we're at today on No King's Day. We are talking about whether or not the government can call forth the militia. And what it is not the president. The president doesn't have that power. And every time the power of the presidency utilizes that power according to the Constitution, they're violating Congress's right. It is Congress that has the power to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, because it is the Congress that makes the rules for the government regulation of land and naval forces, and it is the Congress that declares war, not the president. So every time the president claims the right to be able to declare a war or to uh, bring forth the militia without getting congressional approval first, he's violating the Constitution, specifically in violation of Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, that defines Congress's power as that being the one to call forth the militia. So then we continue. To provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. So what this says is that the militia, our National Guard, is to be trained at the state level by the states, that the states are in charge of putting the officer structure and the rank and file structure in place. And what this means is that the federal government has not the right through the Congress, through the Constitution, to say how the militia is organized. That is left to the states. So then we go on. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 square miles, as may by cession of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be, for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings, and to make laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. And so that concludes Section 8. And that last little bit makes the not exceeding 10 square miles. That is the District of Columbia, and that sets up the area where the United States will place the American headquarters. So then we go on to Article 1, Section 9. The migration or importation of such persons as any of the states now existing shall think proper to admit shall not be prohibited by the Congress prior to the year 1808, but a tax or duty may be imposed on such importation not exceeding $10 for each person. So there's more to this, but this is literally talking about enslaved peoples being brought into the states and being taxed $10 per person. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. That the writ of habeas corpus is like you to be safe in your body. So they're like, rebellion, invasion, nah. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. That means like we're not going to make a law after the fact, and then apply it to people. Like they have to newly break the law. No capitulation, no capitation, or other direct tax shall be laid unless in proportion to the census or enumeration herein before directed to be taken. This one has an C 16th Amendment But every time somebody talks about the Constitution says there's no direct tax, it says there's no direct tax. The 16th Amendment made some changes, which we will get to when we reach the 16th Amendment. But for now, the founders did not intend you to pay tax that was a direct tax unless it was a proportionate for census taking. Okay, so no tax or duty shall be laid on articles exported from any state. So that outright says state exports are non-taxables. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another state. Now, these rules here are to help the fact that at the time this was written, each state was considered a country, and they didn't want all of these countries having their own different rules and regulations that would prevent interstate commerce. No money shall be drawn from the treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law, and a regular statement and account of the receipts and expenditures of all public money shall be published from time to time. No title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Now, that right there should end all discussions whatsoever about whether or not Trump can accept a plane from a king. He can't. Except with the consent of Congress. So if he receives a plane or any other emoluments, that's money, land, property, gifts, discounts on his golf courses, he's in violation of Article 1, Section 9. And the more that he acts like a king, the more he's in violation of the no title of nobility because he isn't a king. All right, so here we go. We're almost to the end of Article 1. Section 10. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. So this is a limitation on what states are allowed to do. And it's specifically saying that you can't and to make anything but gold and silver a tender in payments of debts is actually a crime by this. So the fact that we are off of the gold standard and have been since the 1970s means that the people in charge at the time we went off of the gold standard put us in violation of Section 10 federally. But since it's not, it says that the states can't do it. Maybe the Fed can. We'll have to see what it says in this. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any imposts or duties on imports or exports, except that may be absolutely necessary for executing its inspections, laws, and the net produce of all duties and imposts laid by any state on imports or exports shall be for the use of the Treasury of the United States, and all such laws shall be subject to the revision and control of the Congress. No state shall, without the consent of Congress, lay any duty of tonnage, keep troops or ships of war in time of peace, enter any agreement or compact with another state or with a foreign power, or engage in war unless actually invaded or in such imminent danger as will not admit of delay. So that is the end of Article 1, Section 10, and it limits what states can do. It tells you where the money comes from, how the bills and laws are created, who is allowed, and what to do when they are corrupt. We are, let's see, coming close to what I'm going to be able to do reading wise. So I appreciate everyone who has stopped in today to listen to me reading the Constitution. Tomorrow we're going to pick up with Article 2, and we're going to read for as long as I can go. I have a medical issue with my throat, and I am limited to how long I can read. Um, so I appreciate your time, your energy, and your stopping by between now and tomorrow. Stay safe, stay smart, stay well.